I bought some when gold was 1,200 and silver was 1450. I still have the original email. This was in, I think, late 2019, 18, 19. And just had it there as insurance. You never know. And then after COVID hit and everything came crashing, yeah, I remember especially March 2020, I was trying to time the crash, and you had a massive drop. And I remember I was like, all right, if the Dow goes under 20,000, I'll buy. And then it went under 20. I'm like, well, that was a big jump down. So maybe I'll just wait and I'll go under 15. Now, I didn't understand about investing so well. I had my Roth and I had my IRAs and 401k, but I didn't understand about dollar cost averaging. That I didn't understand about the emotional component. I'm trying to just time it. You can't time these things. And then it rebounded. And I didn't understand why, what was going on. And I remember all those circuit breakers are going off and everyone is freaking out. Remember, this was March 2020 and no one knew what was happening. And I remember Trump gets on and goes, oh, well, we're going to loan whatever loans you need. And the market like freaked out. Like, no, we need money. Right. And then once the Congress freaked out, there was some saying I learned there. It said, once Congress freaks out, then people don't need to freak out anymore or is concerned, whatever the exact wordage was. So I started to learn more about this and I was like, what's going on? And the rebound was so much faster than what happened during the Great Depression, because that's what I was comparing. Or the Great Depression. I was trying to compare that, like, trying to time it out. And then as I started learning more, like what's with the Fed? What is the Fed? I didn't know what the Fed was. And I started learning more. And then I heard about Bitcoin, I remember in 2017. And I started looking more into this. And I remember my wife told me that she never said it, but she forbid me to buy Bitcoin. And I still have my email. I bought my first dollar, I think through Cash App. It was like 3-cent fee. Bitcoin was like 10,500 as I started learning more about it. And then I started watching more stuff on YouTube, and I was learning more about blockchain. And it's very interesting, the blockchain technology, and the problem that Bitcoin solved is very cool. And I started looking back into gold and silver. And then gold and silver started running up. Remember that? I don't know if you guys remember May, June, July, and it was running up to gold hitting all-time highs. Silver went up, it did not hit its all-time high, but it's okay. And then it started crashing. So it was like, what's going on? What is all this? So I started digging more. I started to understand more about money, like Mike Maloney, difference between money and currency, right? So money is something that stores value and is also means of exchange. And you can also numerate it. That's the right word. But you can put it as a number, but that's kind of obvious. And currency, right, is more something you can. Well, the difference between money and currency, they're very similar, but one if it's backed. So, for example, money, like the metals, they're fungible, they're long lasting, they can be broken up, and there's other properties like that. So there's essentially 5 precious metals, 2 of which are monetary: gold and silver. Those are monetary, and then platinum, palladium, and rhodium are precious metals. They share properties, but they're not monetary. And more recently, with gold and silver shooting up, people are asking me, but I've been talking about this for some time. And as I learned more and more, I got very much into crypto and also into some gold and silver, especially once crypto sort of came back a little bit. But once the silver squeeze was happening, once like the whole GameStop and meme stocks were happening, that was in like December 2020 and January 21. So then someone posted, hey, go buy SLV. Yeah, it's the next one. And everyone started buying SLV and buying physical silver. It was the end of January 2021. I remember that. I was at Legoland with my kids. And I'm like, look what's going on. This is crazy. And I went to buy some more. And I remember the websites all started going down. Like they closed. They said no orders over the weekend because they couldn't hedge themselves. And it was hitting 30. And then everything started crashing again. And I started reading on Reddit and following different people, and that the SLV prospectus was changed in early February, that they don't need to actually acquire the metal, things like this. So the shenanigans kept getting worse and worse. I started seeing it. So I started accumulating, and I started looking more into the details and background. And then I started later on getting into the biblical, because I read Chumash with Rashi. That's within the 5 books of Moses. We have actually, I don't have it here, but we break it down. It's a there's something in Jewish law called Shnai Merkov Ve'achad Targum, where you go through each parsha. So there's 53 parshas in the Chumash. Sorry, I said my throat. And you break each week, you read it. And so there's also an obligation on Jewish men, adult Jewish men, to read through it as well. So some people read through it every day, to break it up, and some wait until Friday or Saturday to do it. And that's a different discussion. But within Chabad, we have our own custom to read Chumash with Rashi. Rashi is the main commentator on the Bible, on the 5 books of Moses. And so we do that. So I would note, because I do it in English and Hebrew. So I read it in Hebrew and then I read it in English, because I didn't grow up religious, and language is not my strongest suit. So I like to do both. So what I have it side by side. And I noticed that oftentimes in the translation, it says gold and silver. But when I look in the Hebrew, it says kesef v'zahav, which means silver and gold. So I'm like, why do they keep translating this as silver and gold? I'm sorry, it's gold and silver, even though it's written silver and gold. And then I notice other times it says zahav, kesef, and noshech, which is bronze or copper, depending on how you translate it. So those times, I actually had Gemini AI go do a research for me and found, I don't know if it's 100% accurate, but found about 20 instances in the Chumash where it mentions gold and silver in the same verse. And I had it break it down based on the context of the verse. And every single time it was talking about money, it's a kesef v'zahav. But every time it talked about other stuff like spoils of war, or more particularly things in the tabernacle and the Beis Hamikdash, with the kalim, with vessels, it would say gold and silver. And because gold is the more precious and the more beautiful, and it was used for kedusha, it says gold is really only made for the Beis Hamikdash, for the temple, and for the vessels. But we're used to always saying gold and silver. But kesef is the word in Hebrew for silver and for money. And there's other languages too. Rupee is Sanskrit, which is Indian for money. You have the arnaud, I believe, in French. And in Spanish, you have it's blanking, but I know in Spanish they have one as well. Probably come to me. Not the dollar, but there's another word for it that also means silver. So you start to see, well, in the Bible itself, silver is money, right? And it's all over. Silver has always been money. And what's actually also interesting, silver is the most antiviral and antibacterial substance we have, from what I understand. That's natural. I'm not talking about like Clorox or whatever, but naturally. And so imagine that God made it that silver is what people use for money, for exchange, for currency, and you're always handling it. So then gold takes a role as a bearer asset, since gold is more valuable than silver. So you don't always transact in gold. For big things you do, like if you want to buy, I guess, a horse or a farm or a house. But for, you go to the market to buy your eggs or your fruit or whatever, you're using silver. And that's what was currency. And then the Constitution itself defines money in terms of gold and silver, certain amounts of it. So, sorry. Leave a comment if you want to add anything to this. So as I was looking into crypto and like the advantages crypto have over gold and silver, especially Bitcoin, but I sort of made my own prediction then. I don't have it recorded, so you just have to believe me. And I said, I see crypto doing well because people need to ease the way out, and they're realizing there's something wrong with the monetary system, and the Fed's just printing, and we'll get to the Fed soon. But I said to myself, I think there's going to become a split or bifurcation between, like at the time, El Salvador was starting into Bitcoin, and the countries that have gold, and the people who are wealthy who have gold, and then people who have crypto. And you're going to have a split. And I said, I think that you're going to have people shifting back into gold and silver, because the big thing crypto solves is the trust issue. And that's still a real issue. Is the gold real? So there's ways to test it. How much gold do you actually have, right? China's been clearly suppressing the amount of gold they claim they have. Trump said we're going to audit Fort Knox almost a year ago. He still hasn't done it. He still hasn't released that audit. Even Elon Musk was like, yeah, let's go do a live stream and go look in Fort Knox and find how much gold's there. Well, the problem is that you want to tell people you have more gold than you actually have, right? So how do I know you really have it? It's a physical thing. It's inside of a vault, surrounded by tens of thousands of soldiers in Kentucky, and that's only half. The other half is, I think, under one of the World Trade Centers. Remember that movie, The Hard, where they stole the gold? So actually, some of the conspiracy theories about when 9/11 it came down and the gold went missing. I don't know. I'm not here for conspiracy theories. So, and I said, okay, by the middle of the decade, approximately, so it's actually 2025. I think there's going to be a shift from crypto into gold and silver. And then I think after that, there's going to be more questions being raised about how do we know how much you really have. So I think we're in the middle of that. We lost the trust. I did not realize at the time what a big driver for this was the Russia-Ukraine war, right? And the fact that we seized their, or not seized, but we froze their assets, right, from Russia. And the problem is that when you do that, you are losing trust. You're making people lose trust in the treasury, because right now gold got replaced with the treasury, right? After the Bretton Woods Agreement, 1944. For those that don't know, the countries got together. U.S. had about 2/3 of the world's gold because England and Britain was shipping their gold to us, and we made the manufacturing, and that got us out of the Great Depression. It's a whole nother story. And so the countries came together and said, okay, we're going to make the dollar the reserve currency. And then, of course, the treasury comes and bonds and notes come after that. And so you're going to make it the reserve currency. And then only central banks can redeem their gold. But people can realize that since central banks can do that, it's okay if you as a regular person can't redeem your stuff directly from the U.S. Treasury from the U.S. government, if you will, to get your dollars directly for gold. There's always going to be some sort of middleman. So that system worked, but then we got into wars in the 60s, and wars are horrible for an economy. Some people, Keynesians will say, what do you mean it's great? Well, because you print money, but the problem is you take very productive people, especially young men, for the most part, who are very active and strong and can do things and build things and whatever, and that they go ahead and you send them off to war. And so you need to print money to replace it, and they get inflation afterwards. And so we were printing so much, Charles de Gaulle said, hey, I don't think you actually have the money. We send over boats with dollars because there's so many dollars being flooded around the world. The other problem with being a global reserve currency is that you need enough liquidity around the world to do transactions. But the problem is you have so much liquidity, if people want to use some of that dollars in order to redeem their gold, you have to print more dollars than there's gold. So eventually you got to run on the bank. And then August 15th, 1971, Nixon had to close the gold standard. And temporarily, you can watch the famous speech Sunday night, which is what they usually do. So anyway, hopefully you can hear me well. And then we had this runaway inflation in the 70s, and then Volcker to come in and raise rates. But since our debt wasn't big enough, we were able to get away with that. And then we had the monetary expansion, and then the Clinton years and Greenspan and the whole thing. So then we led it to the 2008 crisis, which was separate, but whatever. It's all together. But the Fed is printing all this money. And so you're losing the ability to have a solid base. But everyone's built on it. So it takes time to fix all this. So now everyone's shifting back to gold, right? Because all those central banks sold off their gold for decades. Now they've been buying it back for the past, since 2008, 2009, 2010. And it's been accelerating in the past few years. So the Bible itself tells you need to have a sound currency. You need to have money that's there in order to do anything. If I exchange my work and services and goods for a substitute, I want to make sure that value stays intact. So this trust issue, like I said before, this was a little tangent went on, but the trust issue, do we really trust that the gold is actually there? And so crypto can solve this problem, especially if it's done like Bitcoin, because it's so decentralized and it's such an ingenious way to solve this problem of the Byzantine. It's called the Byzantine problem. I forgot what the exact problem was called. But this idea of how you can have a trustless system. So you don't know what the countries really have with their gold. And it's been a constant problem. And so everyone's running towards gold and silver now. And that's why when you see all-time highs It's not that gold and silver are gaining value. It's that the dollar has been losing value. It's just been suppressed. And now it's finally coming out. And all as more countries are no longer using the dollar for their transactions, those that dollars are needed for liquidity are finally coming back. And so you're seeing a shooting up of gold and silver. Gold last night hit 4,500. Silver hit over 72, almost 73. In both days, it was a big drop and a fast rebound. And right now in Shanghai, silver is 77 and change. I'm not sure what gold is, but that's a big arbitrage. Usually the most it's ever is 2%. So someone told me a number of months ago, was talking gold, I have $50,000 in gold. So I look like, what does that mean? Because my mindset, I stopped thinking in terms of dollars. I'm thinking in terms of ounces. Oh, I have GLD. I said, we don't have gold. I have this, I have that. I said, but you don't really have it. Because if something happens, you don't, how much do you trust that GLD and SLV actually have all the metal that they say they have? Right? You don't know. And what if they printed more shares than exist? What if they actually don't have the metal? What if enough APs, authorized participants, go ahead and take the metal out? Then what? So if you have the physical gold and silver in your hand, so I think in terms of ounces, how many ounces of gold, how many ounces of silver? So I don't think in terms of the daily fluctuation numbers are on a screen. And then you actually own it and hold it. So you de-risk yourself from being in the system by actually having physical. Then people say, well, there's a premium. I'm like, yeah, but you have hidden risks that you don't realize by keeping it in the system. And when you actually own it, it's nobody else's liability. Gold and silver, no one else's liability. It's physical. It's yours. Now you have risks about someone trying to steal it from you, or you have storage fees to put it into a safe or to a safe deposit box. But there's no such thing as 100% risk-free anything in the world. That's why you diversify, because you don't know what's going to happen. But what we do know is that it's God's money. And even when Mashiach comes and we have to go back to the Beis Hamikdash and give karbanos and give sacrifices, we're going to need silver. They're going to need physical silver. And in fact, the Rambam says it has to be silver that's made by the country or it has writing on it. It can't just be like a chunk of silver. I'm not sure why. It's probably from a Gemara, from the Talmud. But you need that in order to transact in the future. So if you don't have silver now, you should get it. There's local coin shops. There's online dealers. I use bullion exchanges and monument metals are usually my two favorites in most cases. I'm not getting paid by them. I'm just letting you know. And they tend to be the cheapest price. Sometimes if you want something very specific, you gotta look around for it. We have a guy here in Florida. I use local guy, and he's great as well. It's very low price. You can call around, shop around. It's a very numbers game. And it's not financial advice. I'm just saying if you're realizing you're seeing something's going on with this, that's why you clicked on the video. You know, it's built in. Oh, I wanted to say something about the Bible. In chapter 2 of Genesis, it says, it was talking about the different places in Gan Eden, in Garden of Eden, and the different rivers. And it says the name of one is Pishon, and that encompasses all the land of Havilah, where there is gold. This is Genesis chapter 2, verse 11, and the next verse. And the gold of that land is good. And there's crystal and onyx stone. And then a few verses later, it goes through the other rivers. And then it says, now God took the man, Adam, and he placed him in the Garden of Eden to work it and to guard it. So I got this insight from Rafi Farber, who's the only religious Jew that I know of who discusses gold and silver and monetary policy. And he pointed this out. I don't know if it was his original idea or if he got it from somewhere else, where he said that you need to have gold. You need to have money that's sound money. Fix the money, fix the world. You need to have sound money in order to, before you can have work, because the whole idea of work is, what's it called? Specialization, right? Milton Friedman has that famous line. He says, see this pencil? So I have a pencil here. Oh, look, I have a pencil. He says, see this pencil? Okay, sees this pencil. So he goes, well, this wood was cut somewhere one country, and the metal here was somewhere else, and the rubber here was some other plant in Brazil, and he was quoting the places. And the graphite, which is over here, comes from whatever mine it was or somewhere else. And those little letters, those are put on by someone else. I can see that, and all this stuff, and then the way it was shaped and cut. So it says even people who are at war with each other need to come together to make something as simple as a pencil. So in order to exchange all those goods and services, you need to have sound money. If you lose confidence in the currency, everything breaks down. Everything. Because barter is such an inefficient system. You can't just go ahead and say, okay, here's this. I want to buy 3 chickens for my 10 bags of corn. You need to be able to buy and sell corn and chicken separately. So I think Rafi talks about this from an Austrian Austrian economics vantage point, which is that money is a commodity that's the most available, or people talk about least useful. So actually, in some ways, gold is more than silver. However, there is also suppression of silver versus gold. Thank you, PGOE6LX, for your comment. Yes, the failing fiat currencies. I do want to make a quick comment about that. I apologize if I'm going on little tangents. I'm not used to doing live stream. I was going to put out an outline but I want to keep to 1 o'clock. Love to hear your feedback. Please let me know. I'm experimenting with this new. Usually I try to do things polished, and with the teleprompter, the whole thing. It's the first time in history that the entire world is on a fiat standard. Fiat Latin for let it be. And we never had this before. You've had hyperinflation of local currencies before, plenty. You've even had, I think, going back to China around 1,000 years ago or so, you had them with the paper currency, and that took about 200 years to fail. And then you had the goldsmiths. Thank you so much, PG. I don't know what your name is, but feel free to subscribe and share with others. I actually have a 4-part series. It was supposed to be 5. I never finished it, on money. If you go to my channel, you'll see my playlist. And I made that back in the summer when my editing wasn't as good, but I hope you still like it. Thank you, Peril. Where are you from? If you don't mind me asking, you don't have to be so precise. It's okay. No one's going to find you. You're in the US? You're in Australia? Oh, Baruch Hashem. Thank you. Share with family and friends. I appreciate it. So I went through different aspects. I'm a little more, it's hard. People don't realize how much time it takes to prepare a video and all the editing. And people want authenticity in live stream. So, Baruch Hashem, some do. I actually personally don't. But if people like it, go and say, all right, I got a little sidetracked. So fiat currencies. So you've had local currencies before where they were all based on gold, and then they would fail, and people go back to the gold, and then they would return. This all throughout history. But you never had, and this really started in 1971, the entire world on a truly fiat system. So we don't really know exactly what's going to happen. California, very nice. I went to grad school in California, in Irvine, in Southern California. So I sort of became religious in between Los Angeles and San Diego. So we don't know really what's going to happen. It could be very scary, and it's very important to have trust in Hashem. To have bitachon means to reliance on God, and everything's going to be okay. But it's good to do things al pi teva and to have a backup plan, but not put your trust in the gold and silver, but to know that Hashem sending you a message, you should have it and keep it safe. And if you need to use it for emergency, you have it there. Fix it again, Tony. Baruch Hashem. Oh, Ron here. Welcome, Ron. Thank you so much for commenting. I like your last name. I don't know if that's your last name. Here, I like the emphasis on the E. Okay, Baruch Hashem. I'm sorry, I'm a little under the weather, a little whatever. Long story short, I think I'm finishing up. Unless there's a question you guys have, please let me know. Oh, Shalom. The light of the world. Baruch Hashem. So that's where I'm holding with that. So if you don't have any, it's good to get. And my wife wanted me to mention something. She said, make sure to mention a pruta. So I don't know if you guys know what a pruta is. A pruta is the smallest unit of money that has halachic significance. So if, let's say I steal, I don't know, like the little threads out of your suit. So you could technically put the threads together and make a ball of yarn and use that to sew a suit, right? But it's worth sorry, it's worth so little, right? The respective. Yeah, I mentioned that before. I don't know if you just came in, that the money, at least for carbonos, will for the sacrifices. Well, the question is, for people watching this later, is there a perspective on what will be used as money? It's okay. During the era of Mashiach. Yes. So from my understanding from the Rambam's Mishnah Torah, that when you want to give carbonos, you're still going to need silver. So it's good to have silver that's Shell Medina, silver that or with Ksav on it. So I have both rounds, and I have plenty, thank God, of government currencies. So US currency, which is the American Eagle, Britannia's from Britain, Canadian Maple Leaves, Austrian Philharmonics, kangaroos from Australia, etc. And there's plenty of small ones. I like the little small ones, even though they cost more from all these little islands. I like to Solomon Islands, this and that. So, what about bartering? So, bartering is just like with anything. If you barter, but that's a question, right? What is money? So, if the question is, what about bartering? Technically, you're bartering every time you use dollars. You're bartering a good or service for dollars, right? Let's say someone comes and fixes something for you, and he charges $50. I don't know, a handyman for something, $100, whatever the job is. So you sell him, or you say, I have I have $100 bill here. You bartered with him his services for a piece of paper that says 100 on it. That's what you did. So it is bartering. Bartering is just trading one commodity for another. So if money is a commodity, you're bartering. People need to work in the same sense, Well, that's okay. So now we're getting into something. Now I see the power of the live stream here, because now you have the questions we go on. I'll just finish last point. So if you take a tissue, right, this is not worth it. How much is a tissue worth, right? No one cares. I'm gonna get to your comment just a second, Peril. These are great questions. A tissue isn't worth. How much is this worth, right? A box of tissues, it's worth almost nothing. So if I steal a tissue from you, I can't be held liable in the Beis Din, in a Jewish court. And even you see this within U.S. court, right? The Constitution, it's the fifth or sixth amendment, I think. You needs to be $20 or more. They never updated that, but that would be a much larger amount today. So from halakhic standpoint, from my understanding, consult a Rav, of course, is if I steal a tissue from you and you're like, no, you cannot take a tissue. I'm like, I don't care. I'm taking tissue anyway. I can't be held liable, but I can still be lashed. So a prut is defined as 1/40th of a gram of silver. So as of when silver hits $62.20, a prut, we divide 31.1 grams in a troy ounce, and then you divide divided by 40. $62.20 is a nickel. So now that silver is 72. I give every morning, I give 3 coins. I give a coin when I wake up, or soon after I make brachos, blessings. I give a coin before Shacharis, the morning prayer, and I give 2 coins, and I give 3 before Mincha. That came from a letter from the Rebbe quoting, the Lubavitcher Rebbe quoting, I forgot the source. It just as like a good practice, because like the severities of the day get more harsh as you go further in the day. And it's just a nice custom. And actually, I always ended up adding 5 plus 6 plus 7 was 18. It wasn't intentional. That's what I did. So now I give a dime when I wake up. Now, there's plenty of people, the authorities I looked online, said, well, pruta in this sense really means like a penny. Doesn't matter the value of silver. But I'm like, I'll just give more tzedakah. And if the nickel's not counting, so I'll give one that. Okay, now get back to your question. All right. Bartering. I heard a respected. So we don't need to work small theft and Aeronoach. I think they had worse things going on over there, but I have to double check. It's a good question. So if you really think about it, if you look in the 1880s, we were in a deflationary period, and deflation's good. Now you always hear deflation's bad, right? Because when you're in a system with fiat currency, you're always printing money. And so let's say you go to the bank, you need like a $20,000 loan to buy a car, right? 30,000, 20, 30, whatever it is. So like, okay, great. In a few years, you have to pay back 5,000. Well, now it's 5. Let's say 5,000, just to make the numbers easy. So you owe us in a few years 25,000 or 30,000. So when the bank types that up, where does that money come from? Most people think, oh, it's from depositors. Like they put money into the bank, and now they're using other people's money to lend out to someone else. That's not how it works. At least not for the member banks of the Fed. When you go into the branch, they type in $20,000 into your account out of thin air. And then they say you owe these interest payments, and by the end it'll be worth 25,000, 30,000, whatever. The bank then puts the 20,000 in your bank account as a liability for them, and they put on their bank asset sheet 30,000 or 25, 28, 30,000 as an asset, even though you didn't pay the money yet. Now, where do you get the extra money to do that? Well, you work and this night you have to work harder, blah, 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 and eventually pay the money back. Where do they get the money? Eventually, you have to keep creating money into existence to pay the debt because there's way more debt than money because the debt is created out of nowhere. They're not using other people's money. So it's a problem. So if they didn't do that, if you look back to the 1880s, they didn't do that. And we've had 3 other federal banks before we had the Fed, the US banks. And Andrew Jackson actually had to veto it, even though majority of Congress approved it. And he was like a lot of times he's put as like a villain, but he actually mamish like said no. So he actually is pretty cool from a hard money perspective. And you actually had what happened in the 1880s was people who saved could purchase more because as technology got better, you could purchase more with what you saved. So if you look at, for example, computing and technology, think back to computers in the 90s, right? I remember my Gateway 2000 in 1994 was like 2,500 bucks. And that was back then, man. You know, that we're talking like what, 10 grand now, 8, 10 grand for that. And that thing was slow. That was 5.5 minutes to load up. It was a 46 processor. It was 640 megabytes of RAM. I got a 1 gigabyte extension I installed. I had 8 megabytes of memory. And when I upgraded to the OS, I couldn't play songs more than 30 seconds long. I just couldn't handle it. And I had to eventually switch to like a 2000, some other computer. So, and remember that, like, so look at the deflationary pressure. So whether they keep saying, well, they keep making you pay more for things, but I don't need more services. Like the processing speed is fine. So deflation is a natural consequence of technological advancement. So if it wasn't for all the money printing, we could actually be living much better lives. Instead, whoever's closer to the money printer gets the access and gets the benefit of that earlier. It's called I forgot the name of it. Whatever principle. There's a principle it's called that those who are closer to the money printer get the money first, and then the money spreads throughout. So that's why when all that stimmy checks are sent out, everyone was great because it takes about 18 to 24 months. And Milton Friedman, I believe this is what he won his Nobel Prize for, or part of it was to show that money takes time to go through the whole system. And then eventually, like there's more demand, let's say for shoes or whatever product it is, eventually you need to hire more labor. And the labor is like, well, I want to get paid more because that you need more people to provide the goods and services. And then that cost then goes back and it takes time for it to work through and then go all the way back, right? You put the orders in, all these people buy shoes from the shoe store. Shoe store's like, I need more shoes from the distributor. Distributor goes to calls the factory. I need more shoes. Like, okay, like I'm at capacity. I need to build more. I need more money for that. I need to go ahead and hire more labor. Well, there's a shortage of that, so I have to pay more money to get more people in. Now I make the shoes, but the shoes now they instead of costing $10 out of the factory, they cost 15 or 12, and those prices multiply up. And next thing you know, the shoes which cost 50 in the store now are costing $70, $80. But it takes time for that to flow back and forth. So if we didn't have this system, if we had sound money, you would naturally have, if those who are savers would save, and then you wouldn't have all this malinvestment and zombie companies where something like 1/6 of the companies, this was a few years ago, I don't know if it's probably updated, of the companies, at least in the US, I think it's worse in China, um, can just they pay their salaries of their employees and then they just pay their interest payments. But they're not net producing anything positive. Same with the inflation of the amount of government employees. It's crazy. They're just shuffling papers around. It's so inefficient. Puerto Rico, they slash a lot of this. And you'll get a downturn for a bit, but then it comes back. You're freeing people up to actually make real productivity and produce real goods and services. Okay, sorry, I was not looking at the comments because I don't want to get distracted. All right, so that's what I was saying about not needing to work, is that when you get to the point now with AI and robots, so forget about, just put it on the side that it might take over the world and kill us all, but we believe in God and Mashiach, so we don't have to worry about that. So really, there's no reason why you can't have robots picking your food, doing your dishes, being your, cleaning everything else out, sewing your clothes, delivering everything. and then the fuel, they're the ones bringing it. Like they can do all the jobs, and then we can be totally free to learn Torah and do creative things. So that was a long prelude to answer your question. Let's try to answer your question. The banks have been using deposit accounts for investments, collaterals. That's after 2010, um, after 08, right? So the Dodd-Frank that they switched from bailouts to bail-ins, right? So what most people didn't realize is that when you put money in the bank, you are now an unsecured creditor to the bank, and the bank owes you the money. And if they can't pay you, then from my understanding, they can give you shares in their company, but they don't have to give you your money. So there is some benefit to holding some cash, right, in a safe place. Also, in case the grid goes down or whatever, especially in California over there, right? I hear those issues. And I didn't think I was going to leave California, but I became more right-winged when I was over there. It's like I got out of this place. And I learned in Sfas. Sfas I call like the Berkeley of Israel. Like they're all hippies, but at the same time, they're much more right-winged. And and by the way, I don't mind people who are leftist or progressives. Like if someone's willing to have a conversation, like I'm cool. I remember watching his Milton Friedman videos, and he was talking to socialists, and they're actually having, for the most part, it's called Free to Choose, I think. It was a 10-part series made, I think, in the 70s, 80s, something like that. And they were just having, for the most part, civil conversations with an audience in University of Chicago. And you can just you can't do that today. And unfortunately, I think it's mostly because of one side. I'm not saying people on the right are all immune to that. People are still people, but I don't mind. If someone wants to have a real conversation and be respectful and we can exchange ideas, that's great. So got it on my tangent again. So the banks, so that's the worry. People don't realize that they have if you want to hold some money, it's a good thing to do. Call the state, coming from. So okay, so leave, like Ben Shapiro. Ben Shapiro actually moved here to Boca. I remember actually he rented my friend's house during summer 21 when everyone was on lockdown before he decided to move here. He's in one of the gated communities now. I got to meet him. And Baruch Hashem, a lot of people know he is around here. And he's cool. He's much more of a libertarian, I mean, he has the thing is, for a religious Jew, it's actually hard to be a libertarian fully because we have certain obligations. Like, I don't open up a whole Pandora's box here, but certain sexual relations, right, are not allowed. We're libertarian, do whatever you want. And there's certain other things that, we're compelled, as Rambam says, that we're supposed to spread the idea of Noahide laws. And if you have a Ger Toshav, like in Eretz Yisrael, they have to keep the Shabbat Mitzvot Ben Noach, the 7 Noahide laws. So there are certain restrictions on non-Jews, and even for sure Jews. But for the most part, we're Lagoyim. We're a light for the nations. So we are the ones, going back to the topic of this, we're the ones with the Bible, and that's where the Bible started. And Kasav Zahav, it's in there. Okay. Peril, unless you have any other questions, I guess I see why this is people have. That's a good. Oh, I was going to say this quote, and that just reminded me. I just saw it, and I forgot the name of the person. Talib, I think. It says this. It's a beautiful quote. I love it. I tell people I'm a communist. They're like, you're a communist? What are you talking about? I'm a communist. In my house, I'm a communist. Why? I have a commune. I have my wife and 6 Baruch Hashem, beautiful, healthy children who are rambunctious. Not all of them, some of them. And they open the cabinet and they take what they need. And I provide what I can. And my wife provides what she can. And actually right now, I'm a little sick. My daughter's home sick in the other room. She wants to go out to Bagel Boss to the bagels. And I said, she said, no, I want you to bring her for me. I'm like, first off, I'm not your servant. She's 11, getting to that age. Hi, Devorah, if you see me, as she probably won't. And then she'll be really embarrassed if she does. And then second, I'm like, I'll take you to there and eat with, let's eat out. Let's go, it's nice outside. And so provide for you what you need. That's what a communist, right? Provide what you can and take what you need. But it works in a family unit. It kind of works for the kibbutz in Israel. But once you get past 100, 150 people, it doesn't work so much anymore. And then on a local community, we are liberals, right? Not everyone pays the same tuition. Not everyone pays the same shul memberships for the synagogue. Someone needs help. We all pitch in. Usually there's some sort of communal figure or trusted figure, like a rabbi or a community leader that we trust and we give money to. Like around here, Passover, there's a whole program here. It's amazing. And this huge market. Take what you want, pay what you can. No one's looking, no one's judging. They're playing music. They want everyone to come out. They don't want people to feel only like the Nebuch people should come out. Everyone should come out. They want everyone there. So they want you, even if you have money, come take a few things and put a lot of money in. And if you need the money, if you need stuff, go take everything and just put in $1, whatever it is. And if you can't afford $1, don't put anything in. And it's Baruch Hashem, it's a beautiful thing. And you want that. That's community. Then at a state level, I want to be conservative, minimal, but still have something that defines us as a state that's different. And we saw that during COVID. I never really understood the state system until COVID, right? Each state did its own thing. And you saw California versus Florida, like you couldn't get too farther away than that, right? And New York and upstate versus like Wyoming opened up, and in the middle of the country opened up, and Texas. So you have the ability for different states, and you have a checks and balances on the government because you have the states. And then on federal level, libertarian all the way, you have 3 basic properties. Protect the border, which you think would be like obvious, right? Protect the border, have a police force, so that's also just regular government, and education, like to have a judicial system. That's it. You don't need to make roads now. You could put scanners everywhere. You don't need all this. Like that's it. You don't need anything else. You don't need anything else. It's that simple. Just get it all out of the way. You could argue a little bit about research for neat, but like you really just be very minimal. Okay, so that's what while I'm talking, I'm not looking at the comments because I don't want to lose my mindset. All right, now I'm going back. Tithing, tzedakah are libertarian. So I would say tithing, well, in a deeper way, giving a tithe is really, yes, it's more, I'd say on the not libertarian. I would say it's definitely not libertarian. I would say it's liberal. It's a liberal policy because from a secular standpoint, an atheist standpoint, it doesn't make sense. Like you'd say, well, it's my self benefit if I encourage people to give because I need a safety net. But we believe it's a godly thing that we are made in the image of God and God's a giver. And so God gives, I should give and emulate him. For Shlema. Yeah, it's just a little cold. It's not a Bagel Boss from New York. So they have a Chav Yisrael, Pas Yisrael Bagel Boss here. And I asked them, there's a black lady. She goes, you want some schmear with that? I was like, schmear? I love the blacks. Don't get me wrong. I was taken aback. I didn't realize that they knew the Russian. I mean, thank you, Ron. Do you think there'll be a gold revolution? I think it's going to happen earlier than that. I'm not sure who he is, Ladapo, if you can inform me. I think it's going to be earlier than that. In fact, Rafi Faber, I listen to a lot. He's been calling for the end for a few years now, and he acknowledges that it's really hard to time these things, but it could be before the next Fed chair is in. I mean, it's reevaluation is. I think really China and Russia and the BRICS are calling the shots now. Shanghai right now is just way higher in price. They're calling the shots. So we can only suppress it so long. Like it gets to the point where no one trusts the comics anymore. Comics can set the price whatever they want, so what the margins they want. And back in 1980, they said, in 1980, they said, okay, no more buying, only selling. Well, who are you selling to if you can't buy? So they just crashed the price. So I don't trust any of that. When there's a dip, you buy. And you buy when you're comfortable. I actually bought twice when it was going up to 50s and it dropped back down to 40s. I was like, you know what? Soon it won't matter. And Baruch Hashem, it's been fine. Oh, yes. That's right. Yeah, it's very cool. And same with the vaccine stuff. I don't know if I want to get into vaccines, but it's as we've seen everything with COVID, we've seen how those in power are trying to stay in power, right? It has become less conspiratorial to say that than it used to be. It used to be everyone thought, even Ben Shapiro, who was originally all like pro-vax, now he suddenly realized, my daughter's here. Do you want to come on the live stream? She does not want to come on the live stream. She just them. And I just said how we want to go to Bagel Boss, but you don't want to go. You want to go after? I'm talking to Peril here from California. This is literally being filmed live, and that's going to be sent out afterwards. And my last one I did, it went to 350 people. That's okay. You can still watch me. My daughter's a little shy, like her mother, which is okay. Yes, vaccines. Okay. I've been doing this for 45 minutes. If you want me to keep going, I can go. Otherwise, I have to. Actually, tonight's Nittelnach. For those that don't know, it's the Xmas Eve, and we have a custom in Chabad. It's not just ours, but from what I understand, we're the only ones that really hold it for the most part. Correct me if I'm wrong. That we can't learn Torah tonight, and we have certain daily obligations. I didn't finish my Tehillim, my Psalms. I didn't finish my Chumash and my Tanya, my Rambam. I'm behind, and so I was going to use some time now to do that. So if there's no more other comments, and I would love it if you guys commented on my and now all these people joined in. Hello, all these new people that came in 46 minutes and welcome. Introduce yourself, please, if you want, and sign up for the newsletter because I send out all these in the newsletter. I don't sell you email addresses. It's in every comment, or just Google Substack. Maybe I'll put the link here. Give me 1 second if you guys want it. Because this way, what happens is that people don't realize on these platforms that, hopefully this is the right link. People don't realize on these platforms that I can't communicate with you directly on YouTube, at least. There's no, that's my Substack. So if you're enjoying this, I send out a few emails a week. If you don't want to read it, you don't have to read it. If you want to read it, you want to forward it. So that way you don't miss anything, because the algorithm doesn't send out, doesn't always send out stuff to people, even if they're subscribed. It's really based on what you've been watching recently. Learning online, it would be great. Baruch Hashem. Oh, learn here online. Is that a thing? I guess I could learn here online. I don't know. It's like off topic, Ron. You just like hearing me talk. It's just a little off topic. U.S. Treasury values gold. It's actually not true. It's $42.02. So I heard someone say that technically it can never revalue. There's some issue because the number never ends. Yes, the price was set in the early 70s. I think it was originally 35 and they went up to there. And you have the gold confiscation in 1933, 34. And I think it was 34. And the executive order, and they confiscated the gold. It was at $20 was 92 points. It was $20 and something per ounce. It was a little under $21. And then it took the gold, took it, said it was legal to have over 5 ounces, and then it revalued it to 35. That was a great theft. That was a big deal. Let's imagine they took all your gold at 2,100 and then suddenly became 3,500. You're like, what just happened? Speculation. Yeah, I think it's gonna be earlier. That, you know how Trump is. Trump keeps putting out stuff like who has the gold makes the rules, and this Bitcoin conference with Michael Saylor was a few seats down from him. Michael Saylor had his orange Bitcoin tie. My daughter's here. Had the orange. She's enjoying listening to. And Trump had his gold tie, and they were all around. If you remember that scene, they were all around. And what was in the middle? A big golden, whatever it was, ornament. It was gold. And the whole White House is decked out, at least the Oval Office is decked out in gold everywhere. He's obsessed with gold. He loves gold. Trump's son loves gold. They all love gold. Gold says whoever has the gold makes the rules. So that's what he. So I think it's going to happen earlier. It's like you tell people it's going to happen, and then boom, you just do it. Will there be a celebration July 4th? For sure. But I think hopefully, and I'm thankful Trump's in office, because there's going to be some sort of violent or sudden and drastic shift. And I'd rather someone like him be in the helm and have a plan to fix all this. And hopefully it's a very short-lived transition that we can go to a sound monetary system versus if, God forbid, we had the alternative, which from California as well. God help us. I mean, that would be an opportunity for the government and whoever's in power to take even more power. And I'm really, really hopeful that that's not going to happen. Okay. A little bit fantastic. Speculative reset. What do you think about digital IDs? Just get out of my life. These people, they love asking 100 questions. Just like get out. Not you. No, you can say. My daughter, I was talking to her. No, digital ID divorce is like where she's embarrassed. What's digital ID thing, right? Is that they can track you and all that. Gets all that. The CBDCs. Let me live my life. Stop bothering me. Stop overblowing threats for terrorism. How about we have communities again where we all know each other? You don't want to steal from each other, and everyone is prosperous. If everyone's prosperous and we all like each other, you don't have to worry about that, right? It's this whole idea with government intervention. That's the wrong word. LBJ 64, right? 1964, and I think it was 64 in the 60s, rather, whenever it was, to start in the welfare state. now that you, what do you need a husband? Look at the single. Look at the rates of single. Turn on the fans, a little warm in here. Look at the rates of single motherhood. How it jumped from then. Did you know? I don't have the exact numbers with me, but the single motherhood rate for Black women before the whole welfare state was started, it was like in the low 20%. It's lower than white women today. I think the Black women's in the 70s, 75, something like that, and white women it's the high 20s, 30s. I don't remember the exact number. But if you can become dependent on the government, so stop with this. Like, it used to be one of the reasons people like becoming religious about Shuva is that it's one of the few places left. I mean, you have certain examples like the Mormons, of course, the Amish, and probably certain Christian communities in the middle of the country. But, in a place here like Florida, New York, like religious people have a community. My kids play with all the kids. We're in a very diverse community where we are. We're mono-Orthodox. There's also more Litvisher, and you have Chabad, and you have and all different types of people, and Nusach Sfard guys. And they all, my kids have their friends in school, and then a lot of like a whole different set of kids who are friends here. And I share backyards with my neighbor. And we have a few plants, but it's open. Like some people have fences, but it's open, and they all know each other, and they go around. There's playgrounds, and y'all get calls sometimes, like, your son's out on the sidewalk by himself. Like, he's fine. They just want to make sure he's okay. So I'll get a message because I have people, it takes a village to raise a kid. So we have all that here. So people have lost that. So I don't worry about my neighbor stealing anything or hurting, we all know each other. We all see each other in shul. We see each other around. That's not, but other communities, people don't really know each other, and it's sad. Incentives, yes. Yes, incentives, paternity lawsuits. It's complicated. Yes, and it is very sad. I didn't have growing up for most of my life, and it was just me and my sister and my mother. And Baruch Hashem, I see that the fact my wife works at my kids' school, and she just says she sees the effects, unfortunately, of some of the fathers, even if they're physically alive, some of them are commuting, they're away for most of the week, and it really has an effect on the boys, as on everyone. Because your relationship with God is a lot of times based on your relationship with your father. So, it's just sad, and I see the effect I have, and me trying to be more present with my kids around, and when I'm there and just being with them, and it's not always so easy because first off, thank God we have 6, but second, sometimes I'm like, I want to get my packaging, my title, thumbnail out, and I could schedule my video, and do this, and that, whatever else, and I don't want to and so I still want to spend time. My wife saw my video recently. It's like, you have to look out for the needs of the other people in your life. And she looked at me like, no. I was like, no, I do, like, whatever. I don't want to fight because I'm before bed. Anyway. Okay, Brooklyn. Well, I was messed up probably. I mean, I had to has yeshiva, and I had to work on myself a lot. I had a lot of midos I had to work on, and I didn't really identify it fully. It was actually a nice saying, Lechacha, which is my parsha for my bar mitzvah. It says from there, go to the place I'm going to show you. Leave from your father's house. I forgot the exact order. From your father's house, from your land, and from whatever, and go to the place I'll show you. And so the Rebbe has Sicha, and I remember Simon Jacobson's talking about the different influences in your life, that before you can go somewhere, you need to go from yourself, or to yourself. Like, you need to know what your natural inclinations are, the influences from your parents, and influences from your society. And until you really understand those and how they affect you, it doesn't really help where you're going, because you're still carrying that baggage with you, and you don't know. And you see in everything, even going back to the topic of this gold and silver, you don't, spending habits. I was listening to a scriptwriter his name's George Blackman, and he has some very good tips about writing scripts. And he talked about how he finally got like $150,000 for a year, and he finally got real money after he did a course or whatever the amount was. And then he said, I blew it all, and I didn't realize what I was doing. The next thing I was ending up in a bigger hole than I was before. So, like, what's causing that, right? And there's different things there, but if you don't know what's causing all that, I don't know. Okay. Thank you, Peril. Thank you for everyone else. I think I'm going to head off. Sign up for the newsletter. Let's see if anyone did it yet. No one did it yet, but if you do it, click on the link. Should be a place to subscribe on the right. So if you go ahead and do that, I'll put the link directly for the subscription, for the subscribe. Can I tell you why I started doing live streams, by the way? So do you guys know Alex Hormozy? So hold on. I don't have the tab open. Oh, great. Fantastic. Oh, I didn't realize. So Alex Hormozy, so he's a big, he's like 4 million subscribers. He always wears like a nose thing, and he has like a bulk in the gym guy. So he says, he said he was talking to Mr. Beast recently. I've only started listening to him recently from like a business perspective on things, and he's very interesting, and he's well spoken, and he's unique. And he said that they went out to like a baseball, I think it was a baseball game or basketball game, something, and they had different people come out at different levels. So the first people that came out, like the A-listers, like the movie stars, the Mr. Beast, all those guys, right? You don't have a connection with them, and they got like a little applause. And then they went to the next level, which is people made short form, and like TikTok, Instagram reel, TikTok reels, Instagram posts, YouTube shorts. The people focus there, so they got a little more applause because those get so many views, and you don't really establish a connection. Then the people who did long form came out, and they got a lot more applause. They say, who got the biggest applause? The live streamers. And I guess it's because like this, that you're communicating with me, we're talking, we're forming a relationship. Even though I don't know who you are, what you really look like. She's Peril from California, but you can interact. And then when you watch my videos and you see my other insights, it's more of a one-way thing. So I have all these people who tell me, I have these super spreaders who like to spread my videos, and they tell me, I get all these people love your videos and this and that, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, tell them to reach out. I want to hear from them, right? I need chizuk myself. I literally thought yesterday morning, I'm going to make a video like I quit. Like my last video got like 200 something views. I didn't do the intro well. It was too wordy. And, if people don't follow and listen to it, they die. It was about game theory. Like, okay, what's game theory? Who cares? I'm trying to be diverse. And when I can't talk about quantum every single time, I'm trying to diversify. And so I'm actually thinking about, so tell me, since you're a subscriber in the newsletter, you probably watch my other videos. When did you subscribe, by the way? When did you find me, Peril? It was like recently? Yeah, I never, also me, I don't listen to live streams. I guess if you know the person, and I had someone who told me that he did a live stream after like 2 hours. He had like 3,000 people came on. He does fishing. I guess if it's on long enough, people see it's going, they want to interact. I guess that's the big thing. Several months ago. So so since you're here, I want your opinion. I want to use more storytelling. So I did that in that video. I said how I became more religious. I found a deeper truth after an equation was named after me. I'm trying to use more storytelling, but the whole way that this started was I wanted to make a YouTube channel. I wanted to share some insights, and then shifted towards Torah and science. And I made like my economics series, and I first made my whole like quantum mechanics and the age of the universe and astronomy secrets, blah, blah, blah. The traditional things. So I did that, and that ended. And I'm like, all right, what do I write about? So what do I do? So I made about economics. Okay, so I got a few hundred views. And I did Iran when we blew up the reactors over there, or whatever it was, the program. And what I started doing was I created this newsletter. Sorry, inside of our shul's weekly newsletter, I created a page called the Shtiebel page. And I used to do stories, Hasidic stories. And Peril, are you Chabad, or you Orthodox? Like, what's your? I assume you're religious. What's your? I'm just curious what your background is. I don't discriminate. Peril, I really, really appreciate that. I really do. Like, it means so much because the amount of time and effort it takes to put these together, people don't realize. I actually had spoke with Dr. Epstein yesterday. He wants some advice on his YouTube and to do it and how much time. I was like, it takes a lot of time, And Baruch Hashem, Shemrich, fantastic. But like, what's your minhagim? Like, do you daven Ashkenaz? Do you? Okay, that's fine. Like Haredi. Okay, whatever it is. I'm just curious. I'm not like the Rebbe didn't like labels, But Chabad. I assume Chabad's around. Your feelings on Chabad. Someone told me in Israel, they don't like the Orthodox Chabad. Thank you, Ron. I appreciate it. So this was my question. So I started doing more storytelling, and I'm trying to relate to people, but I didn't want to take out. So I started this newsletter, and I stopped it because there was some internal politics and conflict with the scope of what it should look like, and I really felt very strongly that there should be Chassidish, like a good Chassidish story with explanation and insight. It wasn't just telling a story. The rabbi here is like, I don't want just cut and paste. I'm like, I'm not copying and pasting. It's not integrated. It's separate, but it's on the same page. So I was like, I'm done. And I said, I want 2 pages and I'll do this and I'll throw in pictures. And it was like, no, we don't want 2 pages, blah, 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 blah. I was like, I'm done with this. My daughter's due soon. I have too much other stuff going on. And then around a month later, Rabbi Taggart took it over. I don't know if you guys know Rabbi Taggart. He's the one who translated Mishnah Torah in that orange set. He did in like the 80s. Took him like 20 years or something. Nusach Sfard. Beautiful. So that's fantastic. So married, kids, you're like, what's your situation? I'm just curious. If you want to divulge, it's okay. If you don't have to. No one knows who you are, just the numbers on the thing. Anyway, if you don't feel comfortable, you don't have to say it. So he started taking over from like, I guess, November, December, and through April. And I said, I thought of it as a good mechanism to advertise for my channel. So I said, do you mind if I take over half of it? And he's like, yeah, sure. It takes me time. So it's not like I get paid for it. It's like, fine. So I started writing articles, and I started like ran into sort of a blockage. Like, what do I write? So I started using AI to give me some ideas and to help me. I use AI a lot, but I've learned its idiosyncrasies and how to use it. I use actually 2 paid AIs. I use Claude and I use Gemini. And all these people are leaving ChatGPT now. It's, and I never was into ChatGPT. Nothing against it. Just I started paying because Google came out with VO3. That's how I do a lot of my graphics. And it's amazing for $20 a month, literally. So I started getting ideas and then putting stuff together and helping me write. But you have to always do the final stuff yourself. But AI helps with a lot with the ideation, checking tightening up language, checking for different things. It also hallucinates. You have to double check it. So if you want it helps improve my quality and decrease my time, but not as much as you think. It definitely helps my quality a lot. But the timing, it still takes me hours to write my articles, which have become hybrid scripts. And so I started doing that. And then I started learning how to use system prompts. And then from there, I have like a 5.5 page system prompt to get my first draft for my scripts. So then I started saying, you know what, I'm writing these scripts anyway, articles. Let me just read them, maybe put a few graphics. I'll get 40, 50 views for my core people. They'll just watch, at the time I had, I don't know, a few hundred subscribers, whatever it was. So I just started posting that and people loved it. And so that became my mainstay. I can never miss a week, but sometimes it's a little too technical. And if you lose people early on, so I'm thinking about actually pulling back. So I want your opinion on this. I want to pull back from that. I still want to write because I'm putting them into that book, and I actually have a doc open from Amazon's templates. And I want to use also non-Amazon for self-publishing, but you can also do Amazon. They just take more of a cut. And instead of me reading the script, I still want to send it out. And that new newsletter, by the way, because 1 week I couldn't be in the weekly. So I made that PDF. I don't know if you guys see the PDF I sent out where it has the Torah and science on the, like the science and Torah on the side with the background. I want to send that out and continue to send that out, but then take the Devar Torah and develop it into a story where I can have 8 to 12 minutes to talk about the concepts more versus what I currently do, which is my story. I'm sorry, my 4 minutes of our Torah, and then I do my commentary separate. So instead of having both of that, expound it and then make more of a storyline around it. One of the motivations actually is a book called Black Holes and Time Warps by Kip Thorne. If you're not into physics, you're not going to enjoy it. You might actually. I'm not telling you to read it. It's like 500 pages. But I read it in high school. I loved it because I love physics. And the way it started was so original. There was 50 pages of a story, a fictional story of an astronaut getting close to a black hole and all the different effects that he saw. And throughout the next 400 pages, Kip Thorne, who eventually won a Nobel Prize for his work on LIGO and LIGO, Laser Interferometer Gravitational Wave Observatory, not topic for another time. So he kept referencing the earlier story, and it helped me understand the different concepts because I had a visual of that story from the beginning. So I was thinking about that. So I want your guys' opinions. Okay, you're Ashkenaz, you eat gebrocks and garlic on Pesach. Okay. I forgot if we eat garlic or not. I think we don't. I heard once there was some big Rav, and it was one of these things, and he said they were surprised at what he was eating at Pesach. So what are you doing? Aren't you a big Rav? Blah 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 blah. And he goes, my wife purchases everything for Pesach, cooks everything, cleans everything. I have no right to impose my stringencies on her. I mean, to whatever level. He never goes on. Chabad is not. It's worth experimenting how you present your topics. Well, that's what I'm asking you. What do you think? I'm not gonna. I can't do both. It's too much. So I would do, instead of reading the script, I would email it out as I'm currently doing, because it's still an article I'm writing for the weekly and for my emails. But then my storyline would be developed around that topic. And like, for example, the past few weeks of Yosef and his brothers, some of the most dramatic stories in the whole Chumash. It's amazing, right? And I'm not using any of that tension or storytelling. So yes, no Gabrux out there. Okay, whatever. I'm not Gabrux, not Gabrux. We don't eat Gabrux, but sometimes my kids aren't so careful and things get mixed. Yeah. So Peril and Ron, what are your, since you're the most active people here, what are your thoughts on that? What are your thoughts? Well, you're not in the comments, so it's fine. What are your thoughts on my idea? Waiting for your response. Fried matzah. Okay, you're still on Pesach. I try not to. Pesach is so much PTSD. What do you think about my idea, Peril, about this, or Ron, if you're still there? I like the idea. So unless someone's against it, I want to try it out. Okay, Baruch Hashem. I also think so. Hopefully it gets, because I want to broaden, who it's going out to, and I feel like I'm a little stuck right now in terms of my reach. So I sort of want to extend them more. Yes, that is true. That's a very good insight. You are a born physics. Well, I'm trying to diversify what I talk about. So one of my first ones was it was Pinchas. It was about engineering. It was one of my very first ones in the playlist. Ron, I don't know if you look at my playlists, but it's talking about the split Vav and how it's a crazy zone and how that holds the Torah together. Your opinion. No, I'm not talking about the physics. I'm talking about the delivery mechanism. I'm not talking about the topic content. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about how to present it. I want to try to do more storytelling. Okay, and then one last thing I want to share from me. So I'm going to be going for a while now, which is that so I've been helping other people now with their YouTube channels and more professional settings. So this one thing I've been talking about is about doing more storytelling. So if you know anyone who wants to help with the YouTube channel, it's in a professional capacity, and I put together detailed plans to help people, and it's a win-win, especially for people trying to get clients. I put a proposal together just now for someone to also include a commission, because I trust them as part of the compensation package. So if you know anyone who wants or is curious or wants help with it, I use more graphics and editing than he needs or other people need. I do it because it's educational, but you see my other formats, like with Dr. Epstein, I did not do much editing at all. I actually editing of the content. There was some tangents and some stuttering, but aside from that, I didn't really do much like fancy schmancy stuff. So, okay. Guys, it was really fantastic, Ron and Peril and everyone else who's been listening and watching. Thank you so much. Now I start to see the power of the live stream. I really appreciate you sending out my videos to others and subscribing, and it really does mean a lot to me. And it's nice to know I have such a global reach, and we shall only continue from strength to strength. I know Perry said so before. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it, and just continue it's a relationship. Don't worry if people say, "Oh, someone tells me true," like, "Oh, you still talk to me? You almost had 2,000 subscribers. You still talk to me?" So what do you mean? I'm still the same guy. It's just numbers on the screen. All right. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great rest of December 24th and whatever your people celebrate. Goes into hey. Have a great day.